What is up, you plane party people? Steve here. I hope you guys are doing well. Here for your ATC mental workout of the day. We're talking about VFRs, right? Hitting up bars and working VFRs. That's what San Juan Center does, right? Crash course and VFR procedures here at San Juan. This is geared mainly towards the en route side of the house, so the Area 1 side, given the fact that VFR advisories and services available to VFR aircraft are a little more robust in the terminal environment, right? Class Charlie services and just terminal in general is covered pretty heavily by the 7110. In the en route, we took some little snippets of the privileges and rights the 7110 gives our terminal folk, and we kind of just rolled it all into this PowerPoint presentation here, how we can apply providing service to VFR aircraft, participating VFR aircraft, in our system and what we can do to help them get on their way and enjoy the wild blue yonder. Okay, I'm excited. This is a fun topic. You're going to work a lot of VFRs during your tenure here as a radar controller at San Juan, both in Sector 2 and Sector 8 mainly, because those areas are encompassed by the British and U.S. Virgin Islands in Sector 2 and St. Martin and St. Kitts, lots of VFR corridors there, and in Sector 8 where you have Punta Cana, Santo Domingo, Borinquen, Mayaguez, Ponce, all under your charge, all with aircraft going to and from various airports in your airspace. Okay, let's take care of this. Let's have a good time. Here we go. Okay, so the bulleted list today is called They Are People Too, right? We do not want to deny anyone of their humanity or personhood, and we will make sure we do not do that with VFR aircraft in our charge, right? So today we'll cover some basic VFR procedures here that we do locally. Maybe you might be able to apply this at a national level, right? If you're watching from a different facility, but this is kind of a preview of what you'll see specifically here in the Caribbean here in San Juan Cerros airspace. Okay, we're going to learn a little MEARTS VFR data entry, right? So we'll have the keyboard up for you again, learning your keystrokes, so you'll be able to apply this when you enter the OJT environment. Techniques and good practices, right? We have advisement from the 7110. We're looking at chapters 4 for a little bit, looking at chapter 7, right? Visual, and a little bit of chapter 5 as well, and chapter 2 as well too. So we kind of bounce around all chapters here. So without further ado, let's get to a sector. Ready, set, jets, go. I will see you there, okay? Okay, so reaching back to the presentation on radar identification methods, right? We learned about beacon methods and non-beacon methods, right? So we're apply those tools to aircraft requesting VFR advisories, right? Because we need to get them radar identified, get them a beacon code, and get them participating in the system, right? The very foundation of VFR advisories is based upon radar, right? Without radar, you know, if we were strictly non-radar, there's only so much we can say and advise an aircraft flying VFR, right? They're not on an airway, they're not maintaining any altitude nor speed, right? They are just flying around, right? So there's only so much we can do without it. So today we are encompassing radar methods and fundamentals that we learned there and apply it to this situation. So you should be not surprised that we're here in Sector 2, right? A VFR rich environment. Right now kind of barren, but that's okay for the sake of presentation. And we hear this, San Juan Center, good speed 103. And we reply, right? We've learned enough so far to say good speed 103, San Juan Center. Go ahead, right? Sometimes their initial check-in will be very simple. They won't overburden you with all of the information, right? They'll just check on and almost like at a bakery taking your number and waiting in line if there are other aircraft calling you, right? And here they go. Good speed 103, Pilatus PC-12, St. Bart's to San Juan, request VFR advisories. Perfect. And good speed, Tradewind Aviation. We work with them a lot here in the San Juan area, and they fly between San Juan Airport and St. Barth, sometimes St. Kitts and sometimes St. Thomas, but most of the time it's St. Barth to San Juan and back, and they know exactly what to do, what to say, what we'll need. There's an agreed upon VFR corridor that they fly, so these guys, they know the airspace, and just as we try to offer good services, we know the customer, right? So we know them as well. So Our response is Goodspeed 103, Roger, stand by for squawk, right? That's a great response, right? Acknowledge them, right? Because we're going to stop here and we're going to go over the keystrokes for the micro EARTS keyboard on how to enter VFR flight plans and give you some background on that, right? So pause, Goodspeed, it's right there. We could probably deduce that that 1200 code is them, squawk and VFR, ready for a new code. But what we will do after the next slide is get them a full data block, right? And even a flight progress strip for you to mark up as well, okay? So I will see you at the next slide. The suspense is killing me. Okay, so good job with that initial response to their request, right? We have all the information we need, right? We pride ourselves on having short-term memory as air traffic controllers. This is a skill that you will develop and continuously improve upon as you train more and listen to more aircraft, all of different types, IFR, VFR, helicopters, small aircraft, big aircraft, everything. It'll get better, right? But we have enough information here to start providing services. So let's put a flight plan so we may issue a beacon code, right? That's the whole trick here. We want to make sure that they have a beacon code, a VFR beacon code that is, and they're able to participate in the system, get radar identified, all that, and so on. Local VFRs at San Juan will have a Z preceding the call sign all the time. It's part of the automation, the Z, and then followed by the call sign, okay? Can be done on the micro EARTS keyboard. It's very interesting. It's one of the few entries that correspond to flight data processing that can be done at the micro EARTS keyboard. Everything else when it comes to flight data usually has to be done at the FDIO, the flight data input output keyboard, located at the D or the A side in your sector. So let's see how this is done because you'll be doing this a lot and it's good to get it out of the way, okay? Let's do it. Okay, so welcome back to the sector. I'm excited about this VFR flight plan input, right? We have the micro EARTS keyboard in front of us. If you look at, say, the standard area, right, the standard, home keys section, and you go up to the top right, okay, you see those green and blue keys, but you go to the left, there's a hard labeled function keys area. You see the red one for track drop. So if you go up and 3 over, you will see the VFR key. That is our key, get it, to give Goodspeed a well thought out, get that, beacon code. Perfect. So without further ado, and no more puns, let's do it. Okay, give that key an old press, and in your message composition area, VF will populate. It will automatically give you an auto indentation, so no need to hit space. As we talked about before, every VFR aircraft in San Juan is preceded with a Z, right, when being input in. And we just start typing away. Goodspeed 103, perfect. Here's where you'll need a space. Type in the aircraft type, followed by the 3-letter identifier for St. Barth, followed by a splat, followed by SJU, and slap the enter key. Even before you get a beacon code that will populate your tabular list, you will hear that funny whine of the FDIO printer, and you will be met with a flight progress strip, right? Everything that you just typed in, Goodspeed 103, some flight data in there. It gives you the 2 fixed pairings that you typed in, right? St. Barth to San Juan, and sure enough, there it is, a beacon code for you to give the aircraft. Goodspeed 103, squawk 4664. See, not too hard, right? Very simple, right? VFR key, Z, the aircraft call sign, type of aircraft, the fixed pairings, and you are all set, okay? So let's explain a little bit more of the finer details in the next slide, just so you can really become a pro at this and wrap your arms around this and embrace it as you should when working Sector 2, okay? All right, see you there. So very interesting and astute observations are held every time a VFR ticket comes off the printer, right? And for you to give the code to the aircraft. It's a very interesting thing because when you enter a flight plan using the VFR function key in micro EARTS, the behavior and the procedure and what will follow upon you hitting the enter key is very interesting. It's not just getting a strip and giving a code, but there's some thought to this. And some of these observations, they may not be so abundantly clear, but you'll get better at looking at those small peculiarities that micro-EARTs gives you. So the first example is micro-EARTs will attempt to pair airspeed to known aircraft types. Look, you typed in PC-12, nowhere in that flight plan input message did you put a speed for the aircraft, nor would it let you. It doesn't let you enter speed in for a VFR flight plan. But look, it auto-populated 185 for a true airspeed, which is kind of slow for a PC-12. But the funny thing is that it tried to get at least in the ballpark for a turboprop aircraft. Another interesting thing is if the three-letter ID, right, the BY1 that we entered for St. Barth Airport is an adapted departure airport in our airspace, right? It's in the database in micro-EARTs, right, for flight data processing. Micro-EARTs will populate the proper ICAO code instead of BY1, which you do not see there, but you did enter it. You see that TFFJ is populated, which is the proper ICAO identifier for St. Barth. Very interesting there too. So the data entry order after the call sign does not matter. You can try it every which way, right? As long as you hit the VFR flight plan key where it populates VF, auto indentation followed by a call sign with Z in front of it, the next items of data do not matter. You can type in the fixed pairing with the asterisk or the splat, then the aircraft type, then the fixed pairing. It does not matter. It will take it any which way. There's some kind of acknowledgement, some kind of logic check that it does to understand that the aircraft type is unique in its own way, and the fixed pairing is unique in its own way. So another interesting thing, optional data. So there are some additional information that you can improve or you can input into micro-EARTs. Optional data items include upon entry, equipment suffix. So as you notice, we just typed in PC-12. The default setting is slant alpha. It's going to default it to a slant alpha, right? It's probably a default setting, not knowing if it is GPS equipped or any other of the equipment suffixes, but slant alpha goes to default. So at the very least, MEARTS is assuming they have VOR navigation capabilities, okay? And after the suffix and assign VFR altitude. So what is even further interesting is, as you notice, we didn't put any altitude in. We didn't even put VFR in there. We just typed in good speed 103, PC-12, BY1, splat, SJU, hit enter, right? Well, you can also put an altitude that has to be 2 net digits followed by 500 feet. So an altitude plus 500, and it will populate your strips for you. Look, VFR 175 and VFR at 5,500. Now, interesting thing as well, you see that the Cessna 172 that we put in there, the airspeed was populated, which is reminiscent of characteristics of a Skyhawk, right? 135 mile cruise airspeed. But when we tried to trick the computer into doing some funny business, you see that VTest 3, we tried to say, hey, computer, this is a heavy Airbus A380, and the computer did not assign what we think would be a recognizable airspeed for a heavy Airbus A380, which is kind of comical, right? If you did have a VFR aircraft landing Borinquen. So a couple other things to keep in mind too. The destination airport will not be populated the proper ICAO format code. So you see Borinquen, you type in BQN, it is not going to populate TJBQ, right? For some reason, it just doesn't do that. Now, if you are looking for a list of the identifiers for fixed pairings for your VFR aircraft, you can find that on position. They have all a whole list of them that you can use to describe where the aircraft departed from, whether it's an airport or just a general direction if they came from somewhere outside of the San Juan airspace. It would behoove of you to know most of the ones that occur, St. Barth, Juliana, and some of the other fixes too as well. Now, once this aircraft is entered in and has a flight plan, you can amend this flight plan. It's a true flight plan now. So if the aircraft wanted to change a destination or perhaps pick up IFR or change aircraft type, aircraft speed, aircraft call sign, all kinds of stuff, you can amend it just like you would. Look, there's a CID associated with the target, And yeah, you can amend all kind of flight data via FIDO. So this is where the abilities of the micro EART's keyboard stops. Once you get this, this is all that you will be able to input for the rest of the time dealing with this aircraft, because you will not be able to amend it via micro EART's keyboard, but you can have the A or D side do it for you via the FDIO computer. Okay, so a little bit of explanation, a little background stuff, some interesting things, but all the while helpful in you doing your job giving VFR advisories. Okay, good job with that. All right, so great job with that, right? You gave the code. You see how the aircraft auto acquired, right, which satisfies the requirements for radar identification. So that's great. Radar identify the aircraft. Goodspeed 103. Radar contact 184 miles southeast San Juan Airport. Say altitude, right? Verified that mode C. And now we're chilling, right? We are doing well. Look, another aircraft popped up on frequency and we took the handoff. Another VFR. Big surprise there, right? So now let's go to the 7110, right? Our governing document to get some advice, some help, and some guidance on how to deal with VFR aircraft and providing service to them. Okay, so I'll see you at the next slide for the bulleted list. All right, so here we are. Now, what to do, right? We have a radar identified aircraft, but it's VFR, so this might be new territory. This is uncharted waters for some of us, which is fine, okay? So that's why we have the 7110. And the 7110 is great because there are a couple snippets, right? A little cutlets that we took out of the 7110 to help provide a framework for you to give VFR advisory, right? Give service, right? You radar identified the aircraft. We got the traffic count for the aircraft. They want to participate in the system. So yeah, this is your time to shine to provide a good service and yeah, this is how we will apply it. So here we go. Chapter 7, right? Visual, right? Basic radar services for VFR aircraft must include safety alerts, traffic advisories, vectoring by request, and sequencing. Perfect. Though you look at this chapter and it will say terminal, we are able to at least take away some of the highlights and say, okay, this is the general concept of VFR advisories, right? This is what we are trying to do. This describes the services that we can provide, right? So we can emulate that. Okay, good. Further down that chapter instructs us to advise radar service termination, right? To advise when radar service is terminated. And we should be no stranger to that concept. We do it all the time with aircraft landing Aguadilla, Ponce, Mayaguez, Juliana, or the boundary, right? So there's phraseology in that too, but no need to go over because you're probably a pro at it by now. 5.6-1, so look, we're back into vectoring, right, under the radar chapter. Vector aircraft operating VFR, nice, this describes our situation at locations where a special program is established. Well, we really don't have anything like that. Or when a pilot requests or you suggest and a pilot concurs. Nice. So the pilot can ask for a vector, right? So don't be surprised if they ask vectors around weather or vectors around traffic, right? Or you can be proactive, take control, and suggest a heading so they can miss the weather, miss traffic, and so on and so forth. And you just have to get pilot concurrence, right? Because they are VFR and they are not prone to the same rules as VFR aircraft. Okay, so now back in general control. So further on up, earlier in the 7110, issue a safety alert to an aircraft if you are aware the aircraft is in a position, slant altitude that in your judgment places it in unsafe proximity to terrain obstructions or other aircraft. Good. So there's the definition of what a safety alert is, right? So this is good. Just like emerging target procedure, just like calling traffic and weather, it follows the same format, and we'll go over that here when we get back to the sector. And last, right, same section, unless an aircraft is operating within Class A airspace, right, which this is not the case, right? VFR aircrafts don't go in Class A airspace, right, unless there's some kind of trouble. And even then, this is the least of our worries, right? Aircraft or emission is requested by the pilot, issued traffic advisories to all aircraft. IFR, VFR, good, right? They are included in this wonderful roundup rodeo of ours on your frequency when in your judgment their proximity may diminish to less than the applicable separation minima, where no separation minima applies, such as, what do you know, VFR, aircraft outside of Class B, Class C airspace, or a terminal radar service area. Issue traffic advisories to those aircraft on your frequency when in your judgment their proximity warrants it. I know that was very long-winded and it's a very long, drawn-out chapter, but guess what? That last sentence is what you want to take home. That is the point you want to take away from this slide. Their proximity warrants it, right? So if aircraft are looking a little close, situation's looking a little dicey, overtake situation, That's why you have the radio and that's why you have the radar. Let them know, right? Some people refer to VFR advisories as the poor man's TCAS. Guess what? You're doing it for free, right? It's free to participate in the system. And guess what? You are doing it and you are that facilitator. Okay, so take pride in that very task. Okay, so let's get back to the sector and let's apply this stuff. Okay, let's have some fun. All right, so welcome back to the sector. We have the new aircraft on frequency, the Islandways 521, right? We're happy. Everybody is having a good time. We have two aircraft in Sector 2, which I can't tell you the last time that happens. And they're both VFR, so big surprise there. So here we go. Islandways 521, traffic 11 o'clock, 13 miles, westbound PC 12, 16,500 VFR. Good, right? That's the advisories that you were born to give, right? That's the clearance you were born to give whenever you sit down on the radar position. Request vector around traffic, Islandways 521, so no big surprise there, right? You might be surprised, right? You might want a vector, that's no problem. And we're in a position to give it. Islandways 521, turn right, heading 170 vector traffic. Maybe even throw in maintain VFR just to make sure that you are not assigning any altitude. You don't want to get it twisted that you are providing some kind of pseudo IFR clearance, right? No, you're just giving a turn, right? Perfect. One traffic is one for the other, right? Goodspeed 103 traffic west of your position, 13 miles, Brasilia, 13,600 for flight level 175 or 17,500 VFR, right? Perfect, right? If you look in the chapter under traffic advisories, you will see that you are allowed to give a compass roads instead of the position on the clock when the aircraft is rapidly moving. Well, this Islandways was previously on eastbound heading, now they're turning due south, so I figured it was a great illustrative example. Looking for the Brasilia Goodspeed 103. Perfect. So, yeah, wonderful job with that, okay? So keep the good vibes going and let's keep up this scenario. Awesome. So great job with that. Look, our vector's working out right, keeping them safe, right? Even though they're both VFR, the pilot requested us. Look at you, just obliging pilots like no other, right? Traffic in sight, no factor, Islandways 521. Perfect. You follow that up with Islandways 521. Roger, resume on navigation. You maybe even throw in maintain VFR again. I know it's always a safe thing to always say maintain VFR. You're just throwing it in there and saying, hey, guess what, man? Just keep emphasizing the point that you are in fact VFR, and I am aware of that, right? So resume on navigation, perfect. Goodspeed 103 traffic has you in sight, no factor, right? We let aircraft know when they are no longer a factor for each other, as you should, because that's providing good service. And we are met with this, right? Goodspeed 103, Roger, request IFR to San Juan. Oh, man. Facepalm. Goodspeed 103, IFR request standby, maintain VFR. Okay, so this will happen sometimes, okay? This will happen a lot. More often than you think. Sometimes the weather is absolutely beautiful in Princess Juliana, or St. Barth rather, and the weather is kind of crappy and cruddy and not VFR at San Juan. So instead of going through the labor-intensive IFR procedure that we know, love, adore, and love to hate, that is in D2, right? When we're working IFR operations out of Princess Juliana, they will depart VFR and pick up IFR because sometimes, given how busy D2 is and sometimes how busy Juliana is and sometimes how our efficiency goes down the tubes when we're busy, they find it easier to do it this way. So we should teach you this because this will be a tool in your toolbox so you don't get brought down, right? Don't get anchored down by an IFR pickup, right? You can do this. It's very simple. Just have the procedure in mind and know what you're going to do and continue to follow through. Don't leave it hanging, okay? So let's talk about that. We're almost through with this, okay? Very good. Okay, so chapter 428. So look, we're back in the IFR chapter, right? So much good information there. Big surprise, right? A Goodspeed 103 wants an IFR pickup. So when an aircraft changes from VFR to IFR, the controller must assign a beacon code to Mode C equipped aircraft that will allow MSAW alarms, okay? So you might be tempted, right? And sometimes you can get away with doing it, but to follow this procedure correctly, right? You do not want to simply modify the data block to take out the Z, put in an IFR altitude, and carry on that way. Why? Because when you hit that VF key, when you initially gave Goodspeed 103 their beacon code and agreed to give VFR service to that aircraft, the micro EARTS code that you gave does not allow for MSAW processing, right? Minimum safe altitude warning, right? Because That is the computer having the basic assumption that this aircraft is getting a VFR code. You entered it via VFR function key, that they are going to maintain their own terrain and avoidance, right, and see and be seen and see and avoid, right? That's why it's a VFR code. That's why you did not enter in an IFR code. So since they are switching from VFR to IFR, it'll be a great idea for you to put in a whole new flight plan. Now, with Goodspeed specifically, you should check your tab list, because sometimes, more often than not, they did file an IFR for that day, and it's as simple as having them reset their transponder, squawking a new code, right? Whatever code they have, usually without the Z, Goodspeed 103, and you can see if that aircraft is on an IFR or VFR flight plan. And how will you know that? Well, if you full route that proposal, right, get that proposal out in front of you, and you see an even altitude, right, an even flight level, you'll know it's IFR. If it's plus 500, then you might have to remove that as well and follow through, okay? So here's another caveat, right? This is not specific to Goodspeed in particular. When VFR aircraft operating below the minimum altitude for IFR operations request an IFR clearance, and the pilot informs you, or you are aware that they are unable to climb in VFR conditions to the minimum IFR altitude, before issuing the clearance, ask if the pilot is able to maintain terrain obstruction clearance during a climb to the minimum IFR altitude. We covered this in the Ponce procedure, right? When aircraft were not able to fly the rail to departure or do the vertical climb over the airport, right? Well, this is just a good way to make sure that the aircraft is at a safe flying altitude, right? You don't want to just willy-nilly give a IFR clearance and now you just bought the assurance of safety, right, to an aircraft where you don't know where the aircraft is operating at. Maybe you don't see them yet. So this is a good idea to make sure that you know where the aircraft is, know who you're talking to, and make sure that they're in altitude where IFR operations are safe and insured, right, just purely by the providence of their altitude, okay? So remember, we're going to follow through with this because it's a step-by-step procedure, because we want to follow the first rule we talked about. Let's give Goodspeed a new beacon code that allows for them to have MSAW processing, right? Let's get them off this VFR beacon function code and get them on IFR code generated by the FDIO this time, okay? So now here comes the team effort, so let's get at it, okay? Okay, so what we would need to do is just alert the A side or the D side to say, hey, guess what? Goodspeed 103 is now going IFR. Can you full route the call sign to see if there is an IFR flight plan on file? If there is not, right, what you'll have to do is simply get a blank strip, or if they are not busy, just simply get their intention and say, hey, put in a flight plan, Goodspeed 103, PC-12 to San Juan. Very simple. They can pick up the rest because we have taught people the proper flight data inputs, and they should know the route, right, that you're going to put that aircraft over VTIS, right? There are some assumptions that you can take in the quality of training and the institutional knowledge of the people sitting next to you. You're allowed to depend on them, right? That's what we get paid for. It's what they get paid for. It's an assumption that you should know. It's a professional thing, right? Okay, so have them do that, right? But before they do that, or immediately after, right, be sure to tell them to remove strips on Goodspeed 103, Z Goodspeed 103. Why? Because we do not want the downline facilities, right, i.e. San Juan Approach and or San Juan Tower, to get a flight plan on Goodspeed 103 and Z Goodspeed 103, and only one of those call signs actually shows up, right? We want to make sure to say, hey, guess what? Z Goodspeed 103 is gone. That VFR flight plan, they canceled VFR, now they're IFR, right? So good, you remove that one and then you enter the new one. Upon entry, you will get a new Goodspeed 103 beacon code populating your tabular list, which we pulled up, entry A, Goodspeed 103, notice without the Z, and we simply go Goodspeed 103 cleared to the San Juan Airport via direct VTIS, direct. Descend to maintain 16,000, San Juan altimeter 3009, reset transponder, squawk 7322. Perfect. What all did you do there? You gave the clearance, you gave the new beacon code, you gave an altitude to maintain, and you gave the new IFR squawk that was produced from the computer. Okay. Clear to San Juan via VTIS direct down to 16, new squawk 7322, Goodspeed 103. And you would see that that aircraft would switch to beacon code, it would become a primary target for a hot second until the new beacon code populated a couple scans of a surveillance source, whether it be radar and ADS-B ground station, and then sure enough, good speed 103 would return and all would be well. You'd even hear the strips start getting output that happens with auto acquisition. All would be well, all would be calm, all would be bright. And look, in the meantime, we can practice another VFR advisories for ILOAs 521. And this is great because you will see in chapter, I believe it's chapter 2, when describing traffic that does not have a verified mode C and the aircraft type is unknown, you make sure you let them that is the case. So ILOAs 521, traffic 12 o'clock, 8 miles, opposite direction, altitude indicates 16,500 or flight level 160, type unknown, altitude unverified. Just let them know that that altitude is unverified. It is not being cross-checked against a local altimeter setting, so you just let them know. Just an added layer of safety, an added layer of information that they know that that altimeter setting could be off because they might be using an old altimeter setting or an altimeter setting from some facility that is kind of far away. Okay, and ILOAs would respond looking for traffic, ILOAs 521. Okay, so great job with that. You got the basics down. This is as easy as it gets. It's also as complicated as it gets, right? The most complex thing a VFR aircraft can do to you, other than getting some trouble like running into a restricted area or well, that is asking for an IFR clearance, and you have to get scurrying about to this procedure, right? But just as long as you follow through, right? Remove strips on the VFR, get somebody's attention, or write down the flight data on a blank strip and put it somewhere where it's going to get processed. And guess what? No sweat. You got this. It's not too bad at all, especially with practice. So good job with that. Clear and thanks a million, right? Exactly. Look at that beautiful Puerto Rican mountain view of the wonderful water, beach, and sky. You can't even tell where the sky starts and the ocean ends, and where the ocean ends and the sky starts. You got those clouds there looking all pretty. That looks like a VFR day to me, so I figured it was a fitting photograph to finish today's presentation. So great job with that. We explored chapters 4, 2, 5, and 7 of the 7110, getting familiar with VFR operations. We took a look at the microER's keyboard, how you're going to input this flight data to get a VFR strip, right? We looked at the format, the context, the content that you can put in a VFR flight plan, right? And we did a little bit of fun radar stuff, right? Advisories, a little IFR pickup, which never hurt anybody, right? Because that'll happen enough where you want to get to know it, right? So this toolbox of ours is getting larger, right? And that is good. That's a good thing. We are taking fundamentals learned from different videos and putting them together and applying them to different situations. We've been in chapter 4 and 5, 7, and a little bit of 2 for many a video. So we're getting there, and this is a fun topic, and it's also a relevant topic. You know what? You're going to work so many VFR aircraft all the time. Sector 2 in January is nothing but good speeds. And Sector 8 is nothing but aircraft bouncing between Mayagüez, Ponce, Borinquen, and Punta Cana. Everybody trying to get to that wonderful summer or that summer weather in January that we are so known for in this part of the world too. You also will be met with VFR fly-ins, even IFR ones too, but you'll have mass quantities of aircraft coming down to do, training flights down in this part of the world during the winter months. So do not be surprised. VFR will be your moneymaker when you sit down to an R-side session. So I'm very proud. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know we use just a tip of the iceberg, but believe me, it is a major tip at that, and we will keep cracking at that iceberg till it splits in half, right? So really happy. I hope you guys had fun. I know I did. So just remember, may your attitude be just like your separation, positive all the time. My name is Steve, and I will see you at the next slide. Goodbye, guys.